Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a pretty intense journey into a really comprehensive theological system.
We are. We're looking at the 1977 words of Sun Myung Moon, specifically on the theme of the dignity of God and man.
And this deep dive, it's almost like a shortcut, right?
It is. It really is. The source material lays out this incredibly detailed framework. You get everything. The original plan for human perfection, then the tragedy of the spiritual fall,
And then the path back.
and this arduous, almost extreme path back to restoration.
So our mission today is to navigate that. We want to understand what this text is really saying about human identity or spiritual purpose. And this is the big one for me. The reason for that constant nagging internal conflict we all feel.
That pull in two directions.
Exactly. Why does that happen? This text offers a very, very specific answer.
It really does. And we have to start by unpacking this whole idea of dignity. Because the source doesn't just say, that we're loved by God. It says humanity's original destiny was to have the same dignity as God.
That's not a small claim.
Not at all.
It just redefines the entire relationship right from the start. So, okay, let's go there. What did that original state of perfection actually look like?
The source describes it as a complete fusion, a fusion of purpose. If men had reached perfection in the beginning, God and humanity would have been in perfect harmony, pursuing one destiny.
And this wasn't just an abstract spiritual thing, it was physical.
Oh, completely. The home of Adam and Eve was supposed to be God's home. That family was meant to be the absolute, undeniable focal point of the entire universe. They were the center, full stop.
So it's a shared position in the cosmic order, and the text gives, two foundational reasons why God needed Adam and Eve to reach this state.
Yes, and these two purposes are, they're called the central axis of the universe. The first one is maybe more familiar. It's about fulfilling God's ideal of love.
A kind of perfect intimacy between creator and creation.
Exactly. But the second purpose, that's the one that really elevates humanity beyond, the typical idea of a creation.
It's that Adam was meant to make the invisible God visible.
That is the core of it. Adam and Eve were created to be the visible, physical forms of God on earth. They were the bridge. The invisible, spiritual creator needed to connect to the physical world through them.
They're not just messengers then.
No, they're essential vessels.
And if they had perfected themselves, what would that mean for their inner state, their connection to God?
Well, a perfected man is described as automatically being a reflection of the universal mind. And the text says the universal mind is God.
So there's no room for error, no deviation.
None. Their thoughts, their will, their actions, everything would perfectly mirror the divine will. They'd basically be operating as God's own body in the physical world.
And this idea of perfection completely changes the definition of death, too. The source says there's, no such thing as death?
Right, just a transition, a passing into a new realm. It makes physical life purely about preparation.
Preparation for what, exactly?
So when a person reaches that perfected state, their spirit body, you could say, graduates into the spirit world. And here's the really mind-bending detail. God doesn't just welcome them. God dwells inside that spirit body as its mind.
As the mind itself.
As the mind itself. They become one, inseparable, one eternal, perfected body.
So we were all meant to be the bodies of God, his temple.
Exactly. And that's why if Adam and Eve had made it, their position would have been the center of everything. To see them would have been to see the visible, tangible presence of God. That was humanity's intended supreme position.
But obviously the dignity was lost. The path was blocked. Let's move into the catastrophe. How does the text explain the fall?
It's defined so simply. Self-centeredness. The whole problem started when the individual creatures, the angel, Adam and Eve, they each began to operate with themselves at the center.
Fulfilling love for their own satisfaction, not with God as the focus.
Precisely.
And that one act of self-centering had this immediate, crushing psychological consequence for every human being that came after.
It did. The external separation from God created an internal separation within man. The core result of the fall is that the mind and the body, which should be one, became adversaries. They're at war.
And that's the text's answer to our internal struggle. It actually asks you to realize there are two persons living within you, two minds.
Yes. This isn't just a moral dilemma. It's a broken spiritual structure. That's the source of the conflict we feel.
And the text gives these two persons very clear roles.
It does. The God-centered mind, it's interesting, it's seen as having remained true. It's the voice for public-mindedness, for giving, for sacrifice. It's the part of you that says, wait a minute, you should use that for the sake of God and the world.
But the body?
The body has been corrupted. It's just selfish. It wants immediate personal satisfaction. It's that impulsive voice screaming, get it, grab it, that's for me. The source is really blunt here. The body has been turned around and is now controlled by Satan.
And there's a powerful analogy for that control, isn't there? Something about a ship.
A very powerful one, yeah. Satan is holding the body captive with two tools. The first is a rope, which is selfishness. The second is an anchor, which is self-centered love. These are what tether the physical self to this fallen reality.
So the internal struggle isn't just about temptation. It's about literally cutting a spiritual rope and anchor.
Exactly. And this framework puts the text in direct conflict with other philosophies. It specifically calls out communist ideology, which, it says, claims the body is the center and the mind is just an outgrowth that dies with it.
So any philosophy that centers the body is, from this perspective, missing the entire point of the fall. It's centering the very thing that's under hostile control.
You're centering the problem, not the solution. It sees that view as fundamentally unable to solve human misery. For the author, this internal split is the source of all historical tragedy.
Okay, so that leads us to the solution. The diagnosis is clear. How do we reverse this cosmic catastrophe?
First, you have to realize it's a joint project. It can't be done by God alone or by us alone. It needs the joint effort of God and men.
And the method is basically a precise reversal of the fall.
A complete reversal. You have to make God the center of your life and fulfill love with Him as the focus, not yourself.
And this is where that iron willpower comes in, the human part of the deal. What does subjugating the body actually look like?
It means forcing it back into alignment with the mind. The text is very direct. The mind has to say, body, I will subjugate you, you must obey me. This isn't a gentle suggestion.
It's a declaration of war.
It's total mental domination of the physical self.
So the function of religion, then, is to support that internal battle.
Yes. Religion creates the atmosphere where God and the mind can become sharp swords to cut that rope and anchor. That's why the religious path is often described as cruel to your own body. It demands constant denial.
Which explains ascetic traditions. And it's so severe that it even demands cutting ties with family if they're based on that self-centered love.
It's a total detachment. The source quotes Jesus. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. It's framed as a necessary surgery. You have to cut any rope that pulls you back to self.
So what does this God-centered life look like day to day in the small moments?
It's a 247 intimacy that's...
Well, it's pretty extreme. The examples are vivid. When you go to bed, you think, God, won't you rest with me now?
And then you wake up.
Your first thought is for him. God, you are already awake. Good morning, Father. It's a constant, conscious companionship.
And this even extends to something as personal as marriage.
Oh, absolutely. Marriage becomes a cosmic mission. You're meant to think, God is going to be married through me. The source actually says you're doing God a favor so that he can meet his better half through your union.
Wow. Okay, now let's get to the ultimate test of this love. This is one of the most intense parts of the text. It's not just about loving your neighbor.
No, it's about the capacity for extreme love. The test is to actively seek out and love the ugliest man and woman the people society rejects. And there's that specific thought experiment to illustrate this.
There is. The text challenges you. Imagine seeing a person, the example is a huge woman pass by weighing maybe 500 pounds, and you have to ask yourself, can you love her more than God loves her?
Wait, more than God? Why is that the standard? That seems impossible.
Because that's the ultimate proof of self-abandonment. If you can love the person society deems least worthy with an intensity that even surprises God, you've won God's heart. It's called an exciting challenge.
It's the final proof you've cut the anchor of your own ego.
Completely.
So if that's the path, what does it all achieve? What's the final goal? Not for us, but for God.
The goal shifts from our dignity to His. The source stresses that after the fall, God is not a God of glory. He is a suffering God, a heartbroken God.
Because Adam and Eve broke his heart.
Exactly, and that reframes everything. We're not just trying to fix ourselves. We are the children of a suffering parent, and our mission is to comfort him, to take his historical burden onto our own shoulders.
So we have to volunteer to bear the cross God has been carrying.
Yes. And the text puts our own suffering in perspective. It says even the worst human misery is just a spark of light compared to the sheer scale of God's sorrow over history.
The stakes are cosmic. And the highest way to comfort him isn't about asking for reward.
No, it's about transcending that entirely. It's being willing to suffer even more than God. The ultimate act is to then go to his throne and ask one thing. I will ask you to forgive the world because of me.
And the text says,
Silently, God will nod.
you're using your own perfected suffering as the foundation for universal forgiveness. That's an incredible amount of power for one person.
It is. And that life born of God, live for God, die for God, is what earns the final reward, an honor greater than what Adam and Eve were meant for. Because you haven't just lived in perfection, you've lived as God did. You conquered tragedy.
So the choice you're presented with is between temporal glory on earth
Mm-hmm.
or this eternal secret way where God wins.
Right. But you have to conquer the misery first. Before you can raise God into dignity, you have to go lower to lift him higher.
What this deep dive has really shown is that this path to dignity, it's not about self-improvement. It's about complete self-abandonment.
To the point you become God's dwelling place. And more than that, a liberator for his historical sorrow. The goal is a life so pure that God will cry when you finally pass into the spirit world.
And this mission places this just extraordinary weight on every single individual action.
A universal weight.
It does. The source states it so clearly. If I curse someone, that curse shall become universal and shall remain. I am responsible for that. You're not just acting for yourself, you're acting for the entire cosmos.
Which brings us right back to the beginning, that intended position as the visible body of God. If your single-minded determination is the key to restoring God's entire dignity, it leaves you with a pretty intense final question. If every single act has universal weight, does that make every moment of doubt, every small self-centered impulse, a cosmic failure that you then have to actively work to compensate for?